Well, we're back on air. It's good to be here. I don't often get to sit here, sandwiched between two awesome women. One looking all orangey, the other one looking all polka dot, black and white. Anyway, welcome back on the AM show after that interaction with Dr. Nyaho Tamaklo.
Yep.
Quite an interview.
Yes.
The things he said.
Yeah. And he was very blunt. He didn't mince his words. For me, one of the highlights is his downgrade of the performance of this government.
Right.
When you asked him to grade 1 to 10, what it will be, he mentioned that, well, previously he had given the government a 4, but now it's a 2. I mean...
That's like a failure.
Yeah, that's like a failure, but I'd have loved to hear what exactly led to that downgrade.
He mentioned a number of things. The failure of, the president spoke about import substitution.
Yeah.
He says 1D, 1F has failed.
Okay.
He says the planting for food and jobs has failed. In fact, he went after the agric minister for that, what he calls, propagandist move to sell foodstuff at the very premises of the agric ministry and all of that. So he had a number of things to say.
Okay, so those were the things that
Exactly.
informed his...
Exactly.
Interesting. But it was a good one you had on sports, because whenever you have Dr.
Definitely.
You have to discuss sports.
You have to discuss sports.
Definitely.
It was an interesting one, even as we look forward to the World Cup, which is happening in some 4 days. We've got our fingers crossed. Hopefully the boys will do well. But back to that interview. He had a bit of bashing for Anasa Remeyawanas.
Yes, he says, and some people agree with him. I think the president of Imani Africa has also had a stake on the fact that, look, if you conduct an investigative journalistic piece or documentary, you put it together, you might as well put it out to the public first for the public to make their assessment. Then the parties involved can have a whiff of it. But if somehow, like we saw with number 12, there was even a portion for the president and the vice president responding to some of these claims, then you water it down and it ceases to be proper investigative journalism. That is how he sees it. Don't give them the opportunity to play with it or tweak it, or maybe there shouldn't be opportunity to cut out certain things. That's basically what he's leaning toward.
But the bit on fair response, I mean, I think that it's something that is practiced by, global media houses. When I do an investigative piece about maps, before I let the world know, I must give maps the opportunity to respond.
I don't think that's the point he makes.
Okay,
the point he makes is,
here.
So put it out. Yes, you can inform them that, this is what we've uncovered about you and all of that.
Response
But it's not now because you'd realize that snippet that came out and the write-up on social media and all of that, those are the things he's referring to. You can have a discussion with them, but don't put it out to the public. The public must see the full thing first time before any opportunity for reactions and all of that come in. So it doesn't water down the effect. But he talks about dictatorship, even in a democracy. He talks about Ghana being on autopilot. And he also talks about the fact that Oforiatta should have resigned a long time ago. After he said, we're a proud people, we're not going the way of the IMF. And then we did. Someone who is responsible would have resigned. But tellingly, maybe just to add, he also calls on media people to desist from being bought, selling our conscience. And he calls out media people who are in the pockets of
This was an
government.
all-round interview, and I think that's what's good about it. He didn't leave any sector untouched. But talking about the finance minister, that's going to be our next conversation because of what happened in Parliament yesterday. Very interesting hearing that we saw. So we saw all the reactions on social media. We'll be delving more into that.
Please, before you get into that, I'd like to find out, do you purchase fuel?
I do. We spoke about this.
Do you own a car?
No, I don't.
You don't own a car?
I don't own a car.
Okay. Then,
Did you see Mom's face? I said, I don't own a car. She's like, hey, stop being mischievous.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, so we'll be having that conversation. And also, we know that despite the censure hearing, more NPP MPs have joined their colleagues to demand the dismissal of Ken Oforiatta. One would have thought that once the motion for censure is being heard, there would be some restraint. But it appears that the NPP MPs are bent on getting the president to sack the finance minister.
Yeah.
So Kweku Asante is in Parliament for us. We understand that there's something else that's brewing I don't know if you heard.
You know of the bit about the majority leader and Oseche Mensah-Bonsu and Gabi Asare Ochodako.
Yes.
That's an interesting twist.
That's an interesting twist. We know Gabi has responded. He says that he sent a message to the majority leader indicating that he's never made such an allegation and he never sponsored anybody to unseat him in 2016. And we're understanding that there's simmering tension.
And this is becoming personal.
Yeah.
That's what I am. It's
That's
now
what
becoming
you're
personal
learning.
between those two parties. We'll see how it pans out.
Yeah, but one of these days it will be good to have a conversation about the NPP as a party and what it makes of all of these things. Because yes, this is the majority in Parliament. This is a known figure in the party, but it's telling on what's happening within the party. All right, guys. So this is why I dismissed the two of you. Thank you so much for for holding the fort.
Aye, ma'am.
Yeah. So we're delving right now into that conversation on the censure hearing, and we've got Sami Obeng, Executive Director, Parliamentary Network Africa, joining us for that conversation. And well, before that, though, we've just got a wrap of what happened during that hearing for you.
It was a hearing full of heated arguments and forceful presentations. The minority set out to brand Ken Ofori-Atta as the minister who must not continue in his current role as the finance minister. Counsel for the finance minister, Gabi Asare Ochodako, objected to the manner in which the minority were handling their evidence.
And it would not be fair to the Minister of Finance to be ambushed and right here, without any preparation, to start answering questions. The documents are fine, but before we even be able to look into the documents, we want the charges to be complete with the particulars. That's all we ask.
Minority Leader Haruna Idrisu described the minister as incompetent, the sole reason for country's current economic predicament.
2017, $1 was to 4.2 Ghana cedis. Today, $1 is 15 Ghana cedis. That has meaning for businesses in Ghana. The cost of doing business is unacceptably high for businesses. The pharmaceutical industry is complaining because it affects their imports and they are made to pay more. The depreciation of the cedi has affected even Makwala women who cannot trade effectively.
Dr. Ato Forson said the minister had breached the fiscal responsibility law and has also misreported data to Parliament.
So if you breach it by 1 percentage point, then obviously the vote of censure may trigger. What we have seen is that over the years, even though the minister responsible for finance has been presenting some economic data to Parliament, in the year 2018, Mr. Chairman, you can see it on the board, our minister responsible for finance and the government had said to Parliament that the fiscal deficit was 3.9% of GDP. In fact, in the year 2018, the reason why they said it's 3.9% of GDP was that a key expenditure worth 9.8 billion Ghana cedis was excluded from the fiscal accounting. They treated it below the line. And this has to do with the financial sector payment. The law was passed on the 28th of December 2018, and by December 31st, 2018, the minister has breached the fiscal responsibility rules already. So 3 days down the line, there was a deficit of 1.8. And that is why we are saying that the trend for the censorship motion moved in the year 2018. In fact, if you were to go by it, somebody could have brought the motion to censure the minister in the year 2018 or 2019 because he breached the rules. And to my surprise, these are rules that were set by the minister himself when this bill, he brought the bill to Parliament for a reason. The reason is to ensure fiscal sustainability and debt sustainability. If you breach these rules, it has long-term repercussion on the Ghanaian economy. And today, we are seeing what is happening. So, Chairman, I tender this one to in evidence.
There was an intense back and forth between Gabi Asare Ochodako, his lawyer for Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta, and North Tongue MP Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa, who is a member of the 8-member ad hoc committee.
Mr. Chairman, we object to this strongly. If he can hold a press conference to deal with those matters, but I think that we are here for a specific reason. Grounds have been stated. Let's stick to that. You know, we are not here for it's not a political platform to make some political pronouncements. These are serious allegations. Please, please.
He will not teach me how to do my work in Parliament.
No,
this is Parliament. You won't teach me how to do my work.
Let me finish.
No, he can't come here and throw his weight about. He can't teach me how to do my work. I take strong exception that I should go and hold a press conference. Please.
I'm only 78 kilos. I'm not going to throw it around.
Please. I won't accept that.
Yes.
And you are not the chair. You don't tell members of Parliament what to do.
That's fine. So, I mean, we appreciate the point.
I will do my work. I'm not going to hold a press conference. You will not teach me how to do my work.
Was a wrap put together by my colleague Kweku Asante on what transpired in Parliament yesterday. Let's now speak to Sami Obeng, Executive Director, Parliamentary Network Africa. Hello, Sami. Good to have you here once again. Your quick assessment of the hearing yesterday.
Good to be here. Thank you for having me. Well, it was a good first day in my estimation. It was a time for the committee to, explain to the general public as well as the parties involved what the procedure, for the hearing is going to be. They did well to do that. It was a good opportunity for the proponents of the motion to set out the, terms of the motion, to explain the 8 points that they had captured in the motion, and they also did that. I think that the finance minister and his council were also, forceful in indicating how much time they will be needing to go through the various documents that have been tendered in evidence on the matter, and they were also successful in getting the 48 hours bit. So all in all, I think it was a good first day.
Right. So there were concerns by lawyer for the finance minister. He says that they were being ambushed. There were other highlights of that particular hearing yesterday. But what people are most concerned about, especially on social media, is the conduct of the co-chair, K.T. Hammond. Did you also have reason to worry with some of his rulings and mannerisms?
Well, of course, the council. First of all, let me take the issue about the objections that were raised by the council finance minister. Of course, in such parliamentary procedures, you would really, expect that people who come in as counsel for a particular party would want to, certainly, make a case and a point for why certain things done in a particular way or must not be done in a particular way. So you cannot fault them for that. Surprised that on social media, as people watch this live on the Parliament Facebook page, on television, on various, platforms, people were very much concerned about the mannerism, the approach to the chairmanship by the Honorable Co-Chair K.T. Hammond. I think that if there was a low point, really, in the whole procedure during yesterday's session, it would be that particular side of things. I think that he and his colleagues, once they go into conclave, would be able to recognize this and will come and have a better show at things when.
Hello, Ms. Obeng? Hello, Sami?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Sorry, I lost you there a bit. Were you done with your response to that question?
I was saying that perhaps by Friday, the committee should have been able to recognize that they could do things better, especially the coordination between the two co-chairpersons. Of course, if you have a parliamentary committee being co-chaired by two members from either sides of the house, certainly you expect that we would have some of these things coming up. But certainly, Honorable K.T. Hammond could do better.
Right. So at the heart of this is the finance minister's stay in office and the censure motion, the motion for his censure. Now, it's interesting because while this is happening in Parliament, the NPP MPs who a while ago asked the president to sack him and the then Minister of State at the Finance Ministry, Charles Edubuahin, have been able to get more numbers. Initially, they were about 80, now they are 98. Now, despite this hearing, they're still mounting pressure on the president to sack the finance minister. What does this indicate for you with regards to the confidence they as a majority have in their own government's appointee?
You know, when the initial estimated number of 80 members of the majority caucus first held a press conference to indicate their proposals on what needs to be done, and the fact that they would not want to have the finance minister stay in office and he doesn't have to be the one leading the budget process. You know, I was one of those people, and of course, my organization, Parliamentary Network Africa, congratulated them very much for that bold, step, because we don't usually see these things. We don't usually see members of a particular caucus, especially when their government is in power or their party is in power, making such bold steps. And I think that it was a good thing that they needed to be commended on. Fortunately, they've had a few more members joining in. Sometimes the narrative have been quite inconsistent as to whether they are going to participate in the budget process or not, as to whether they are going to participate in this censorship motion and vote for it or not, and what have you. But I think the more we have many more members of parliament on the majority side join this group of MPs, the better it is for us. It goes to show that some of the things that we have spoken about in the past, about members of parliament doing party bidding all the time, against doing the bidding of the very people that elected them into parliament and have them as their representative, then we are getting to that particular stage where members are showing that when push comes to shove, they can be able to stand with the people. So I think it's a very good thing, and we need to encourage these members of parliament to not feel like they are on the negative side of history, but to feel like they would come up as a group of heroes and heroines who, when the going got tough, stood with their people and were very principled on their position, though the heavens fall.
Right, finally, Sammy, before I go to my colleague who is joining us from Parliament, what would you wish would happen, especially with this hearing? We are told that the minister will appear on Friday. The co-chair of the committee, Dominic Ayeni, was a bit concerned about the 48 hours that lawyer for the finance minister was requesting because of the time frame they were given by the speaker to do their work. And so on Friday, we're going to hear from the finance minister. He suggested 9, but his Katie Hammond, suggested 10 a.m. What are you expecting to see on Friday, even as we wait to hear the response of the finance minister to these 7-point allegations raised by the minority?
Yesterday, excluding the break, the 1 hour or so break that the members of the committee took, we analyzed that the committee sat for about 6 hours. That was a very good time for a committee, a long time for a committee of parliament to sit on a matter like this. It shows the level of commitment by the committee. The questions and the issues that were put forward for me were a very good advertisement of how well parliamentary committees can do their work. And we expect that on Friday, similar things will be replicated. Of course, the committee will be under enormous pressure to have to hear the side of the minister and his people, put forward their own part of the argument. Now, assuming that takes another 6 hours, the committee will still need some time to put together its reports, get ready and all of that, and present to plenary. But I expect that between now and Friday, the committee will go to the Right Honourable Speaker and make a request for some form of an extension, so that they can be able to have some time to do the work that needed to be done. But all in all, I really expect a good time on Friday. I expect that overall, when the committee has finished hearing the two sides, the committee would discharge itself professionally. They will come up with a report that would not derail all of the effort that
right.
they put into this. And in the end, they will not come up as a committee that caused their own infighting to derail all of the effort that they have put into this.
Right. Thank you for your time here. Samuel Bing is Executive Director, Parliamentary Network Africa. Let's now head to Parliament, where my colleague Kweku Asante is standing by for us. So, Kweku, it was about 6 hours of interaction yesterday between the minority leader and its spokesperson for finance. We also heard from Mr. Otredako and other members of the ad hoc committee. We've seen the highlights in that report that you put together. But between yesterday, when the meeting, the hearing was suspended, and Friday when it will resume, give us a hint of what the committee is likely to be doing, especially since we heard yesterday about GNPC and other institutions or individuals being contacted to furnish the committee with some details.
So, Bernice, our understanding is that the committee will be taking this time, these 2 days off that it has, really, not to just be there and waiting for the finance minister, but to speak to some of the institutions whose name came up during the hearing, notably GNPC, having to do with this ground of allegation, the third ground having to do with illegal payment of oil revenues. We heard there from Andrew Ejapamesa, he is the Deputy Energy Minister, who said that the Jubilee Oil Holdings Company, the company which the allegation is that the ministry have created as a shell company to dump these amounts of money, is solely owned by the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation, GNPC. And so GNPC will be providing some help, some support, some information to the committee on why that institution was founded, why the amounts of money have been deposited, and why it is registered offshore, among other things. So our understanding from some confidential information I'm getting from the committee is that between today and tomorrow, GNPC and other such institutions who were mentioned in this investigation and in these public hearings that we've had so far will be contacted by the committee and will be expected to provide some information for the report of the committee that will be presented to plenary hopefully next week.
Right. So, Kweku, there were some reactions on social media, and it's important that we help in educating the public on what exactly was supposed to happen yesterday. So, I'm learning that the finance minister was actually not expected to appear before the committee yesterday, but he did appear, and so people have expressed a bit of disappointment that they didn't hear from him. Just run us through exactly what yesterday's hearing was meant for, why the minister was there, even though we are told he wasn't supposed to appear, and what likely we're going to see when he appears on Friday.
So, Bernice, Article 82, which deals with this motion of censure, says that when the debate is happening, the finance minister may be heard in his own defense. So actually what is happening at this committee is an extension of the entire parliament. That was the ruling of the speaker. And what is going on is part of the debate of the vote of censure that the minority have filed. So yesterday, the finance minister was not expected to speak. He was expected to appear with counsel or whatever aspect of his choice that he sought to appear with. But he was supposed to be there and listening to the debate, because what the minority leader, Haruna Idrisu, Ato Forson, were doing, together with the members of the committee, were a debate. So the minority were laying their grounds. The committee members were asking questions. They are also making comments of their own. The finance minister is expected to be sitting in, listening to all these grounds and allegations that have been made against him, so that he can prepare satisfactory responses when it is time. We also saw on a couple of occasions his lawyer, the Gabi Asari-Otredako, interject a number of times, objecting to questions, objecting to certain evidence that were being laid. Indeed, if the finance minister so wished, he could have done so himself. He could have just sat there as a member of the committee or a member as someone who was interested in the debate, as Article 82 provides. And he could have objected, he could have provided explanation as and when necessary. Because this situation is fluid. You know that this is the first time a vote of censure is being moved under the 1992 Constitution. So a number of the modalities had not been set out already, and the Constitution and the standing orders are absolutely silent on this procedure. So the finance minister could sit there, interject to questions, offer explanations as part of the debate, but he has not elected to do so, and that was what his lawyer, Gabi Asari-Otredako, was doing by coming in every now and then. What is not clear now is what will happen on Friday. Will the finance minister make an opening remark? Will he say something?
or all the grounds that have been advanced by the minority, the answers will now be provided by the lawyer, because this has become sort of a legal process. There are those who have said that this is not a court, and so you cannot hold a court standard, strictly speaking, in terms of admissibility of evidence, instead of calling of witnesses, among other things. But we also know that committees of parliament have the powers of a high court. So a number of these issues need to be stranded out so that in the coming years, if anything of that sort comes up, it will be clearer. But the finance minister was not expected to speak yesterday. Indeed, if he so wished, he would not have been at the hearing, but he elected to do so, come and listen to the proponents of the censure motion, and then prepare his grounds of defense to do so on Friday.
Right, quickly, also on social media, we've seen a lot of reactions. People are concerned about the behavior of the co-chair, Katie Hammond. They say that he's making the committee's work look like a joke. I don't know what it was like inside the main hall, because we could see right behind where the finance minister was sitting, there were other people there. What was the general reaction to some of his interjections and rulings and mannerisms?
Indeed, there were a lot of such comments in the House, where whenever the co-chair, Katie Hammond, made some remarks, there will be people who will be giggling or laughing or, reacting sort of. And I made a lot of notes, and these notes, everything I've written here is the number of interjections that Katie Hammond had to make, some of the so-called light moments. But I spoke to him informally outside of the hearing. He is not perturbed about what is going on so far. He says that he is doing his job as co-chair of the committee. He is not doing so to so-called what social media people would like. But he thought that what he was doing was in the best interest of the committee. He could come in every now and then. But he also thought that while this is a very serious matter, we don't have to come and sit here and make it seem as though we are going at war with each other. Right. And that such light moments were necessary to deflate tensions, to deflate that kind of pent-up emotions that are built up in the committee room. So from his perspective, he thought that there was nothing wrong with what he's been doing. And I'm sure right after this committee is able to present his report, the debate happens on the floor. Katie Hammond will speak extensively to some of the things he did. But a number of them that I've noted, going to the point where he speaks about not buying fuel. There's a part where they talk about haircuts, of the IMF negotiation, where he says God is his own Baba, he doesn't have to get a haircut, among other things. But he thought that there was nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, and interestingly, he also made reference to the coconut head statement he made some time ago. It was an interesting moment yesterday. We also had people giving us some proverbs here and there. But let's wrap this up quickly, Kweku, and delve into other matters in Parliament. Because while you were monitoring that censure hearing, the NPP MPs were still mobilizing other colleagues. Now we understand 98 of them still want the finance minister gone, despite the hearing of the censure motion. What exactly is the mood in the House, especially on this matter?
Indeed, if one word can summarize that, that would be defiance, because the majority MPs are now dead set not to have the finance minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, present the 2023 budget. Indeed, they want to see his exit immediately. So like you said, while this censure motion committee was sitting, I was trying to pick information because my sources were telling me that the group of 80 who at the time spoke about asking the president to dismiss the finance minister were meeting their parliamentary leadership to firm up their decision. Only last week, before the censure motion was debated on the floor, we heard from one of their spokespersons, Dr. Nana Ayew, MP for Efujasi Asokore, who came out there to say that they had changed their stance from the earlier position where they had met the president. The president had made a request of them to hold on to their demands until the budget was presented. They said they were no longer holding on to that. They wanted the finance minister gone and immediately. Despite that, they were not going to support the censure motion. So yesterday, they had some meeting with the majority leadership to, as it were, give them this new information that they had come up with. The decision is now that they are absolutely not going to give the finance minister any chance to present the budget come next week. We know he's expected to present a budget, I think, 24th November, actually, as was announced in last week's business statement that was presented in the House. But just 2 days before that, this censure motion will be debated. But now you are hearing from these majority MPs who are now able to mobilize 18 more of their colleagues to join them. And they are saying that they do not want the finance minister to present the budget they want him gone immediately. They've taxed their leadership, that is Oseche Mensah-Bonsu, Afenyo Martin, Frank Anadom to communicate this new decision to the president. We know the president is not in the country. He's traveled on a private visit to the United Kingdom. He's not expected back until maybe a week's time and other things. So this decision would have to be communicated to the president, who must act immediately because the budget is expected next week. If some sort of compromise is not reached by the end of this week, then there will be some challenges for the minister next week.
Kweku, before I let you go, is there anything happening in Parliament that is worth talking about?
So there are a number of issues having to do with the majority leader's take down of Gabi Asare-Chidako. We know that he went hard on him, asking who he thinks he was and why he thought to suggest that he or Oseche Mensah-Bonsu was the one that was instigating their MPP MPs to, as it were, pass a vote of no confidence in the minister. This morning, our expectation was that there was going to be some sort of address of the majority leader. We understand that has been stood down for some time. But what the minority, I should say, are saying that there's clear signs that the center cannot hold. There's a lot of discontentment within the NPP ranks. And so this must be dealt with. They think that this inures to their benefit ultimately if there's this infighting within the Patriotic Party. But there are also a number of key questions that have been listed today on the other paper. The health minister is expected to answer some very urgent questions on palm oil in terms of the health sector of the country. The number of questions that have also been slated for the minister to respond. So in the next hour or so, when the House resumes, these questions will be put to the minister, and he'll be expected to answer. But MPs will also be expected to give sort of their understanding and their reaction to what we saw yesterday at that vote of censure hearing.
Great. Kweku Asante, we'll leave it here. Kweku Asante is our parliamentary correspondent, giving us all the gist on what's happening in Parliament. He'll stay there for us and finish us on the very important highlights of today's parliamentary work.